everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this pattern right here as it was requested at one point. Now I have the time. I'm going to be showing you how I do this. I have my tape measure, I have the curve ruler, I have this patchwork ruler here which I like because it gives you a more accurate line. I have the rubber, the pencil, my scissors and my pattern paper. First, I would like to thank a couple of subscribers that subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate that, and thanks for coming. I hope each time that I upload the videos you'll find each one helpful. Alright, so here I go. You don't need to go out and get this paper. You can always use a A4 paper. Just for the purpose of the video, I want to use this because this is a lot more clearer. Alright guys, now I have my paper in front of me. I'm ready to show you guys how I mark my pattern. And this pattern is extremely simple to make. Let's get started. Alright, so to begin, from the bottom you're going to measure up 2 inches. And when you measure, make sure to put a dot and write it down on the paper as well, which would make it easier for you when we go to connect the dots. Alright, so this is your 2 inches mark here. From the top you measure down 3 inches. Okay, now we're going to measure from this point in the corner 3 inches. If you like, you can mark it as well. Okay, right between your 3 inches mark, you're going to measure in 4 1/4 inches. All I'm doing is just marking it like this, but I'm doing this just to show you guys another way. Alright, so that's your 4 inches. Alright, from the 4 inches line you're going to measure down 1/4 inch. Yeah, and that's how I do that. You just measure down 1/4 inch and you mark it. From this corner, from the opposite corner, you're going to measure in 2 1/2 inches. Alright, so that's 2 1/2 inches. From somewhere in the center here, you're going to measure in 1 1/2 inch. Alright, and then from this opposite corner at the bottom here, you're going to measure in 2 3/4. from your 2 inches mark, right between your 2 inches mark right here, measure in 4.5 inches. And this is your 4.5 inches mark line right here. So from this line, you're going to measure up 1/2 inch. This looks just like a puzzle. This looks real complicated, but it is not. And if you look at it, you could actually almost see the outline of the mask. So now what I'm going to do is to connect all these dots. I'm going to connect them. There's a reason why I ask you guys to write the measurements down so that it will be easier. So when I say connect 3 inches, 3 inches, 1/4 inch, you know exactly where they are. All right, so that's what we're going to do. You're going to connect the 3 inch dot to this 3 inch dot and then to the 1/4 inch dot. I'm going to use my curve ruler to do that. And if you don't have a curve ruler, you can take a plate and you can also connect your dots just as well. So you go ahead and connect your 2 3 inches and your 1/4 inch. And when you connect your dots, your line should look like this with a slight curve. All right, the next connection is your 1/4 inch to your 2.5 to your 1.5. We're just going to do half of it. So connect the 1/4 inch, 2.5, 1.5. Right, and this is as far as we get to. So this should be your 1/4 inch, 2.5, 1.5 mark. All right, now you're going to continue and connect your 1.5 to your 2 3/4 and then to your 1/2 inch. All right, and this is the mark right here. So this is your 1.5, connect to your 2 3/4, connect to your 1/2 inch. And the next step is to connect your 1/2 inch to your 2 inches. And this 1/2 inch to 2 inches has a slight dip. This is what's going under your chin. All right, and this is what it should look like. It goes slightly up and out. So that's your 1/2 inch, connect to your 2 inches. And that's your mask right here, and this size is a medium. Right, so if you think that is not, like for example around here, if you want to make it a bit straight, because coming across around here with the curve roller is a bit tricky, you can go over it and straighten it out so you have that nice curve right here. And that's your mask right here. You go ahead and I'm gonna cut that out. And also the seam allowance is also included in this mask already, so you don't have to worry about adding seam allowance. And this is the mask, as easy as that. I'm sure you guys find it really easy. It's very, very simple to make. I hope you find this helpful. It's not a very long video, just wanted to show you guys how this is done. I hope that is helpful. I'm gonna come back and show you the other style pattern, the ones with the pleats at the side. That's real simple. I'll come back and show that to you. Alright, so I'm going to use this A4 paper and make the other pattern. Alright, so across I'm going to measure 7.5 and down I'm going to measure 7 inches. Alright, so this is my square, 7.5, 7 inches. Alright, I'm going to also go ahead and make my seam allowance. And my seam allowance is 1/4 inch. The next step is to find the center. So I'm just going to fold the paper in half. And you can just notch the mark right here. Alright, to make your pattern, you want to make it look a bit professional. You can draw a line right in the center mark. And make like an arrow. Like that, and you can write center line or grain line, either one. All right, you can do either one, doesn't matter. So that's that. The next step, you're gonna indicate where your elastic's gonna go, and they're obviously gonna go in the corners here. So what I would suggest you do, you can draw a line like this, like an arrow, and mark elastic. Alright, so you could do that, make it easy on yourself. From this center line, you're going to measure up 1 3/4 and you're going to mark. Yeah, and these are the marks for your 1 3/4. What you can do is to go ahead and notch that just like we did here. Yeah. You can notch all 4. Okay, so you have your 3 notches on each side. For each one of these notches, you're going to find the center. You can do the same thing as I did here and fold your paper right where your notches are. And you just fold your paper like this just to find the straight line. Alright, so that's basically your center line for this notch. Okay, in between these lines, you're going to divide them in half and measure 3/4 of an inch. You're going to divide them in half and measure 3/4 inch, and you're going to mark. So that's your first mark. Yeah, and that's your 3/4 inch mark. So for those of you who use centimeters, is 2 centimeters you measure. 1 centimeter on this side, 1 centimeter over here. And for inches is approximately 3/4 inch. So you go ahead and you mark all of these 3/4 inches mark. And I hope you can see the marks that I did right here. And these marks is just to indicate your pleats, and that's basically what it is. All right, so what I would suggest you do, you can go ahead and mark your mark it just like this, and underneath each one of these you mark pleats. Alright, so you know from this point, that point, and this point gonna make one pleat, and all your pleats is gonna go in one direction. Okay, so this is basically your mask. Alright, another thing I wanted to show you guys that I forgot to show you is that at the 7.5 inches mark, you leave about 2.5 to 3 inches open. And when you do that, you can give it a notch right in the space where you choose to leave open. It could be further at the end, it doesn't really matter. And you can mark leave open. What I'm going to do is to cut a mask out and show you how I put it together. Alright, I found this piece of fabric that I'm going to use. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just take my pattern and put it onto the fabric. I'm going to pin it as well. I'm going to cut 2 pieces. These are the filters that I'm going to put into my mask as well, and I'm going to also get some interfacing and press it into the mask. I'm just going to use this piece of interfacing and I'm going to press it onto 1/2 of the mask. The next thing is to cut my elastic. I have these, I'm going to use those. Alright, I'm ready to put this mask together so you can see how it's done. So on the side that has the press on, the interfacing, I'm going to stitch on these filters. And the reason why I have 2 pieces is because I don't want it to waste. So what I'm going to do is just simply join them together and stitch it on. First, I'm going to sew in the elastics. I'm going to sew in the elastic into the side. This is very easy to make. So, you know, we're doing 1/4 of an inch. So you just bring the elastic down just about 1/4 of an inch and you can stitch that there. Do the same thing on this side, the side that we're going to put the pleats in. You do the same thing onto that side and put in the elastic on the opposite side. So remember your notches. So if you notice, my pleat is facing down. It's your choice at the end of the day. If you want your pleats to go up, then you just turn your pleats the opposite direction. You don't turn your pleat the opposite direction like that. But I want my pleats to be down, so I'm turning them this way. Right, just for reference purposes, this is your pattern right here. Remember your pleats. Remember the 3/4 mark right here, 3/4 of an inch. You're going to take this notch and that notch and you're going to put them together. Basically, you're going to put them together like that. Right? So that would be your pleat right here. Right, that would be your pleat. So you take that notch, the 3/4 of an inch mark, and you put those together, and that would be your second pleat. Yeah, and those are your 3 pleats on the side. Okay, so when you're ready, you just go ahead and you do the same thing on your fabric. This is going to be the bottom end of my mask. So I'm going to take this notch, that notch, and I'm going to put those together to make my first pleat. Once you have that line up, you're going to stitch all your pleats down. Alright, that's the other half of my mask. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that a press. Alright, so once you have your pleats done, press. Make sure that they're all lined up and they're going in the direction that you choose. You're ready to join your mask together. Alright, another thing you can do as well, before you put the pleats in, you can go ahead and stitch the whole thing around up to where you're going to leave the opening, turn it inside out, and then you can give it a nice top stitch, then put your pleat in. But I prefer to do it this way. As you go along, you'll learn different ways to do this mask. It's really easy and simple. Alright, so the next step for me is going to close this up as I said before. So I'm going to put right sides together, making sure that your elastics are facing inwards. And make sure that all your pleats are going in the same direction, right sides together. And you're going to pin that. This mask is so simple to make. I hope you find it very useful. And if you have any questions, you can actually leave it below and I will try and respond as quickly as possible. Alright, so these two pins mark where I'm going to leave open. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch from this point, go all the way around up to this other pin here. And my seam allowance is 1/4 inch. Pins out and notch your corners. Clip your corners. The next step is to put in the pipe cleaner. So the corners are a bit pointy, so I'm going to take my jewelry pliers, the one with the round ends, and you're just going to roll the ends in. Just so that you don't feel that sharp edge. Right, so once you have that, you find your center. You find your center on the mask. This is my center here, and you just basically put the center of the pipe cleaner to the center of this, and you top stitch it on top with a zigzag stitch just to hold it in. Alright, once you're done, you turn your mask inside out. You can get something sharp and push your corners out, just to be careful and just be careful not to rip your corners. Alright, this end has our pipe cleaner, so what I'm going to do is just mark where the pipe cleaner end off. Right, you can give this another press if you like. Alright, so the next step is to get a needle and thread, close this end here. You get your needle and thread and you hem this opening here from the inside just to close it up. Alright, and the next step, you're going to give it a top stitch all the way around. I like to start from the bottom here, and what I like to do is from where we did that hand stitch, I like to give that fine stitch right along the bottom piece just to hold that side in as well, just to give it that extra reinforcement. So at the bottom we're going to start with a fine stitch, and when we come to the end here, and then give it a 1/4 of an inch stitch all the way around down to this point again. And that's the mask finish. Alright, so what you do next is just trim all your excess threads just to make it look neat and tidy. Make sure to take all your pins out. Alright, so this is the mask finish, really easy. You give it a 1/4 of an inch stitch on the side, at the top, down to the other side, and then a fine stitch at the bottom just to reinforce that hand stitch in the space that we did, and that's it. And that's the opposite side, very same. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can go ahead and try this for yourself or for a loved one. Stay safe. Alright, and I see you in my next video. Hi guys, this is the mask that I just made. I said I would put it on so you can see how it's fitted. And this mask is very comfortable. So you can go ahead and make your own. Stay safe, and if you have any questions regarding how it's done, if there's anything that you're not clear or certain of, please feel free to contact me below. See you in my next video.